super excited. We're here today with Jesso, singer, songwriter, musician, uber talented, does everything. I'm excited because I literally got to watch personally your grind from being an inspiring songwriter and artist to then getting to this pivotal moment in your career that just changed everything.
Yeah.
And you're living proof that it just takes one single song.
Thanks.
And that you took off from there. So tell us a little bit about yourself and where you're from and how it all got started.
Yeah. What's the story?
What is the story?
This is so fun because I've worked with Christine for many years, so it's fun to do this in a new capacity. So I started off as a songwriter. I'm from Chicago. I went to NYU and got an internship at EMI Music Publishing, and then realized that you could be a songwriter for hire, essentially, because before that I didn't know. I just thought artists wrote their songs. So I was the best intern I could possibly be, and worked really hard. And then when I graduated, I asked my bosses, who had then went to 2 separate publishing companies, to put me in sessions, and they did. So I started off in sessions in New York, writing with different producers and writing and kind of getting my sea legs and my chops, and started getting little cuts, and then started getting, attraction from people who wanted to sign me. And I ended up moving to LA in that time. And when I got to LA, no one took me seriously. Nobody wanted to work with me because I didn't have any cuts. But I ended up falling into this group, this very international group of songwriters. And they ended up inviting me to Europe. And so I ended up going to Europe for a while, specifically Norway, and writing a bunch of songs with my Norwegian friends. So I did that, and from there started getting to know the international songwriting scene, and ended up going to a writing camp in Denmark, and I wrote a song called Ventepaka with some friends of mine that ended up being a single for Ricky Martin featuring Maluma, and that ended up getting me nominated for a Latin Grammy. And then when I came back to the States, everybody's like, "Oh, you did that? Oh, that's cool. Okay, we'll work with you now." And I always was an artist first. So my plan was to be a songwriter like Julia Michaels and John Legend and Bruno Mars, who started off writing for other people and then transitioned into artistic careers themselves. So that was always my plan. And I remember I actually called you. And I had gone through I'd gone to these label meetings. This happened at 3 different labels, where I would go into these label meetings and play the music, and they'd say, "You're great, we should sign you." And then 2 weeks later, they'd call me and say, "Actually, we just signed this kid with 1.8 million Instagram followers. We should just buy your song off of you and keep writing, kid." So that's what I did. And I remember calling you and saying, after this happened 3 different times at 3 different labels in like April, I remember calling you and saying, "Okay, I hear the universe. It wants me to be a songwriter. I'm not going to let my dream of being an artist die, but I'm going to put it on the back burner. I'm going to focus on writing the best songs that I can." It's so weird to tell the story to you, because you were part of the story.
That was a serious grind, and it took a couple of years. So it's not like an overnight success.
No. This was like many years into it. I mean, I think we started working together in 2014.
That sounds right.
This was 2016 or 17 at this point when I called you. A couple of months later, I walked into a studio and I wrote a song called Stargazing. I wrote it with Jamie Hartman and Stuart Crichton on a Monday. On Tuesday, we sent the song to Kygo. On Wednesday, we had a version back from him. And by Friday, it was a confirmed single. And it came out 2 months later. And in those 2 months, the label tried to put every big male artist that they could find on the record and take me off. And it was actually Kygo and Miles, his manager, who stood up to the label and said, "No, we like Justin's voice. That's authentic. He wrote it. That's the music we're putting out." And that's how I stayed on Stargazing.
That was probably the fastest I've ever seen a song go from it being written to being released within 2 months. That was nuts.
Yeah.
Can we rewind real quick and go to the beginning of when you first discovered that you wanted to be a singer, when you first got into songwriting, maybe back in Chicago? How did you first get into that?
A long time ago. I mean, I was always the kid who went for the plastic microphone over the toy football. I started writing with some friends in Chicago when I was 10, and then when I was 15, I met this guy named Ira Antelis, and he was a producer and a songwriter in what I now know to be the sync world. But at the time, I didn't know that term. He worked for Leo Burnett as the head of music, and Leo Burnett was a big advertising company. Yeah. So he was writing music for sync, and he had this great big studio, and I became one of his side projects. So we worked from the time I was 15 to probably the time I was 18 on an album that we then actually ended up getting some traction with from Radio Disney. So I then, the first iteration of my career was as an artist on tour, opening for Corbin Bleu and Jordan Sparks and Raven Simone and Mitchell Musso and all of these Disney kids, while getting my songs played on Radio Disney. Yeah. And then that all fell apart, and I went to college, and that's where I got the internship, and that kind of catches us up to the previous story. Well, I mean, it has to be Stargazing, right? I mean, I there's been a couple of points. I think that getting the internship and getting in the door was a good first step. And then having Vente Pa' Ca go was another big milestone for me that helped move the needle. And then, of course, Stargazing was the song that launched my career as an artist, which is what I'm doing today. Yeah.
And that took you around the world on tour with Kygo.
Still does, yeah.
And that also made you get signed to Sony Germany eventually, right?
You saying it's hopeless, that I should hope less. And I will still be here, stargazing. I still look up, look up, look up for love. I will still be here, stargazing, even when the night is over. That's how I find the light. And I will still be here, stargazing. I still look up, look up, look up for love. Stars don't disappear, they keep lights on, even when the night is over. Even when the night is over. Even when the night is over, I will still be here.
I mean, I love my own like my own club shows are really fun. When it's like, you know, there's like 700 people that are in the room that are singing along to every word of every single one of your songs. The last tour I just did, it was that way. Where like I get into a room of, you know, 700 people coming from doing like thousands, you know, or even like 100,000 or like 30,000 with Kygo into a very small packed room. But they sing every word, even the album cuts that I've put out. And it's really cool when you get into a situation like that where you know that it's resonating because you can see it on their faces. So that's probably the coolest part. Ziggit Festival was crazy. It's a festival I did with Kygo a couple of years ago. It was like 110,000 people in the crowd. And we followed Shawn Mendes. New Year's Eve in 2019 was kind of crazy too because I played at the Brandenburg Gate.
Yes.
And that's
pretty big.
It was like, supposedly that's the most people that have ever been, because they closed down the street and the whole street is packed. Yeah. And it's like 300,000 people deep.
And I will still be here, stargazing.
It varies. I mean, I like to start from a concept that makes things easier. But it's not always that great. I don't always have that ready to go.
Mhm.
I do have a whole list of things, and usually I refer back to that.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, it could start as easy as me sitting here and going, oh, I like these. Any chord percussion. Stupid lyric, but so I'll be there for you when you need me there. I'll be there for you. And then if I pull up my phone and I'll find some concept that I haven't written yet, and this is not a good song that I'm just, but like that's literally how it starts.
Yep.
And then I'll be in a room with somebody and they'll be like, oh, I'll be there for you is too basic. Let's do something that someone hasn't heard. And we just think about different either concepts or things that strike us, or we'll take it from real life experience. Like I wish I came out with brilliance every time. It doesn't happen. And this is my friend and producer and songwriter extraordinaire buddy Lucas Costas.
Hello.
And we're frequent collaborators, and I invited him over to make a song with me today. So here's my idea song.
Those are all your concepts?
Yeah.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
A lot of ideas.
It keeps going. I just keep writing. Should we go all the way down to the beginning?
Yeah, what's the first one?
I am over the sky. What? Scattered pieces of my life. Oh, this. The truth is, I think I care a little bit too much, and that's not cool. I care a little bit too much. I sing a little too loud. There could be like something interesting in a little too. It almost sounds like a country song. I sing, I sing a little too loud, a little too strong, a little too long, a little too long. When you gone, I drink a little too much. I know a little too long. I love a little too long. I love a little too long. Because what I want to say is hoping that you kiss me, right?
Yeah.
Not like that. Maybe the right thing is, but I get a little too close, just hoping your lips fall onto my mouth.
I wonder if we just ditched the on my mouth. Like,
Lyrics 101. I talk a little too much, I sing a little too loud. I get a little too close, just open your nose will fall out.
no. Open my nose. Open your nose.
Okay.
Anyway.
I don't know if there's anything with noses and mouths. Did we stay a little too long? Like by now we should figure it out. Cause I know I stay a little too loud.
I talk a little too much, I sing a little too loud. I get a little too close, just open your lips will shut my mouth. You'll say a little too long, but that's how you figured me out. And the way that you say that you wanna love's a little too much, a little too loud. Hey, that's kind of fun. You like it?
How many songs a year would you say you write, and how many songs actually turn into
Oh,
something, get picked up?
I'm still a 5-day, five songs a week guy. I used to be more. How many of those see the light of day? Probably like 12, maybe 14. Yeah, somewhere in there. Out of probably a couple hundred. And that's because I have an artist project. That's because I can put out the music myself. The two pieces of advice that I give to people who are trying to make it in the industry is one, get an internship.
Yeah.
And get your foot in the door, because that's going to be invaluable. And the second one is work with the people around you.
Yeah.
Because once I had the attention of those A&Rs that were willing to put me in sessions because I did a good job as an intern for them, they needed something to listen to. And if I hadn't worked with the people at my school, at the Clive Davis Department of Recorded Music at NYU, who were at my level, loving music as much as I did and just trying stuff out, I never would have had the songs, or there was one particular.
And from a management perspective, when you open a door for someone and then the people that you collaborated with come back and say, oh, I loved working with Justin, that's when things really work.
Is that what happened?
That's when things really work.
People called you and was like, let's get Justin back in the room.
Yeah, and that's how it's supposed to be, because, you know, your work ethic is 150%, and people recognize that, you know. Talent is one thing, work ethic is definitely even more important. Yeah. Any music industry secrets you can share with us?
You know, it's tough. I mean, I get really frustrated with the industry because it's not linear. What's crazy about the music industry is 2 + 2 = question mark. Most industries, it's 2 + 2 = 4, or 2 + 2 = 8. It's exponential, and you kind of know where it's going, and it's linear. And the music industry isn't. I do think that what you said rings true. I do think that being talented and working really hard does get you somewhere. But I think so much is right place, right time, and luck, and platforms and the people around you. And so, I mean, the music industry secret is like nothing is guaranteed, and you kind of got to trust the universe that if you work hard and you are talented and you trust yourself, which I have a lot of trouble doing, that you'll get somewhere. Who knows where any of this leads, you know? So I just got to keep moving and keep creating and keep believing in myself.
I want a life that's bigger than...
I am a storyteller. That's what I do. And I hope that I continue to have a wonderful career in music as an artist, and that I'm able to go and play shows around the world. But I'm also getting into telling more long-form stories. That was one of the things that I started doing over the pandemic. And so both musically and in terms of like scripts and screenplays, and I hope that I've got a couple of shows on the air, and a couple of movies that have been made, and a couple of albums in the can, and that I'm touring the world or shooting this or you know, making that. I just want to continue making things and telling stories.
Well, that's it. That's it for us.
What's the story?
Thank you so much. What's the story?
That's the story.
Justin Jesso.